was almost Halloween, and my friends and I were gathered around, sharing spooky stories to get into the spirit of the season. The air was filled with excitement and a bit of nervous tension as we took turns trying to outdo each other with the scariest tales. Finally, it was my friend's turn. She turned to me with a mischievous grin and said, "Why don't you tell us the story about your parents' first date?" I hesitated, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. "I don't like telling that story," I replied, "because it's true." My friends naturally were intrigued and incited me with playful taunts and curious prodding. Reluctantly, I gave in and began to recount the eerie tale that had become a part of my family's lore. My parents' first date had been pleasant, though a bit strange. They had dinner, chatted about their interests, and seemed to hit it off well. As the evening wore on, my dad, feeling a sense of adventure, suggested a midnight walk in Provo Canyon. He was familiar with the area from his climbing trips and thought it would be a unique end to their date. They both agreed and drove to the mouth of the canyon. The night was dark, as it was a new moon, but the sky was clear and dotted with stars. They got out of their cars, the cool night air brushing against their skin, and began their walk. The path was faintly illuminated by the starlight, casting an eerie yet enchanting glow on their surroundings. Despite the unusual suggestion, they were both excited and felt a sense of camaraderie as they ventured further into the canyon. As they walked deeper into Provo Canyon, my dad began to feel a creeping sense of unease. It was subtle at first, just a nagging feeling as they approached a particularly dark area under some trees. He decided to ignore it, not wanting to spoil the evening. My mom, though unfamiliar with the trail, felt a similar unease around the same time. She didn't say anything either, chalking it up to being in an unfamiliar place so late at night. A minute later, my dad's feeling of dread returned, stronger this time. He glanced at my mom and saw a flicker of apprehension in her eyes, but he brushed it off again, telling himself it was nothing. They continued walking, their footsteps the only sound in the still night. Then, as they stepped into the shadowy area beneath the trees, my dad's foot hit something soft. He froze, a powerful wave of fear crashing over him. The darkness made it impossible to see what he had stepped on, but the ominous feeling was now overwhelming. They both stopped, their breath catching as they sensed something was very wrong. Standing there in the darkness, my dad's heart pounded as he tried to make sense of what he had just stepped on. The feeling of danger was overwhelming, an instinctual warning that they were not safe. My mom must have sensed it too, because without a word, they both nodded and turned back the way they came. We didn't need to discuss it, we just knew we had to get out of there. As we quickly walked away from the trees, our pace quickened until we were practically running. The night seemed to close in around us, every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs sending chills down my spine. Our hurried footsteps echoed in the quiet canyon, and with every step, I felt a growing sense of urgency. Finally, the familiar sight of our cars came into view, and we sprinted the last few yards to them. Slamming the doors shut behind us, we both let out a sigh of relief. Sitting in the safety of the car, we caught our breath, glancing at each other with a mixture of fear and confusion. We didn't speak much as we drove back, but the tension gradually eased, replaced by a deep sense of relief that we had listened to our instincts and gotten out of there. Years passed since that eerie night in Provo Canyon, and my parents eventually got married and settled into their life together. The memory of that unsettling evening had faded, tucked away in the back of their minds. One night, they were watching a documentary about infamous serial killers on TV. My dad was flipping through the channels when they stumbled upon an interview with Ted Bundy. They both froze as Bundy began to recount his criminal exploits, describing his chilling encounters with chilling precision. Bundy started talking about a particular night in Provo Canyon, detailing how he had lured a girl there and had just finished killing her. He then mentioned hearing voices and footsteps approaching, just as he had hidden himself in the trees. Bundy described how a couple had walked right into the scene. the man even stepping on the body, but inexplicably turning around and leaving. My parents sat in stunned silence, blood draining from their faces. They realized with a sinking dread that they were the couple Bundy was referring to. That night, they had unknowingly stumbled upon the crime scene of one of the most notorious serial killers in history, and had narrowly escaped their lives. The room felt colder as the realization set in, the weight of what could have happened pressing heavily on their mind. It was a chilling reminder of the thin line between safety and danger, and how their instincts had saved them from a deadly encounter they would never forget.